You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, friends. Craig Ballard, Locked On Blue Jays, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Toronto Blue Jays, wow, thrilling weekend. End up with the sweep. Fifth home series this past weekend against the Atlanta Braves. And remember, everydayers will recall we talked on Friday about what a HOT team this hot Atlanta Braves team was coming into town. The last 162 games, so that's the equivalent of a full season, the Atlanta Braves were 110-52. Is that good? Holy moly. This season, they were at 25-12, and on the road, they were 15-3. So, and Strider and then Bryce Elder, they had some pitchers going for them too this weekend, right? Shout out to the Hound. How good was Chris Bassett on Friday? When do you ever see a complete game shutout? You know, in baseball, it's rare. In Toronto Blue Jay baseball, my goodness, uber rare. What a job by Chris Bassett that was. Jose Barrios, very good, made one mistake in the entire game on Saturday. The bullpen doing the job pretty well all weekend long, in particular, picking up Yusei Kikuchi, who really struggled in Sunday's game. But Danny Jansen with the walk-off on Mother's Day, I mean, my goodness, a sweep. Again, that was the fifth home series of the season for the Toronto Blue Jays. All five. The third and final game of the series, the Blue Jays have had a chance to sweep. The Blue Jays are jumping on teams. As soon as teams cross the border, the Toronto Blue Jays are jumping on them. It's been very, very, very impressive. Going to need to continue to be impressive because who's come to town now? The hated New York Yankees. And all of a sudden, the Yankees are playing some good ball, right? They've come in off this weekend having taken a 2 out of 3 from Tampa Bay. And I shouldn't say all of a sudden. They've been playing well all season long. I shouldn't phrase it that way, but they have had some injuries. They're getting some guys back healthy. It's always going to be a concern, right? It's always an interesting series. Let's put it that way when the New York Yankees are in town. And this one is taken to the next level, A, because both teams playing good ball right now, B, both teams such division rivals, and the AL East just being an absolute minefield, like just a war, or not a war zone because this is sports, right? I don't want to be too hyperbole is what I'm hyperbolic. There we go. I don't want to be too hyperbolic. Very easy for me to say, right? Yeah. So in sports terms, right? In sports terms, the AL East is just an absolute battlefield. My goodness. So big series all around. And this one, what takes it to the next level? This is a 4-game series. And it's right smack in the middle of a 10-game homestand, which is right smack in the middle of a 17-game in 17-day stretch. Every day, as you know, we've talked about this. Normally over 17 days, you're going to have at least 2 days off in there. And depending how the schedule breaks, you might even have a third day off in there. Blue Jays don't have any. And this is right on the heels of the first 25 of the 37 games of the season being on the road. So this is a road where this is a bit of a tired Blue Jay team right now. All the more reason why getting it kicked off with Chris Bassett, not having to use any relievers in that first game, such a special performance, such an important performance. Fast forward to now, New York Yankees in town for this 4-gamer. Overall, all told, Blue Jays 317 wins, 385 losses in their history against the New York Yankees. That includes a losing record at home as well, whether it's been Exhibition Stadium or the Rogers Center. Yankees have always done well against the Blue Jays. Overall, Blue Jays 167 and 182 in home games against the Yankees. Now, Blue Jays have won just 3 of the last dozen games. Yeah, between these two at Rogers Center. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm nervous about this weekend, about this week's series here. New York Yankees, they are a thorn in the side of the Toronto Blue Jays. That's why I preface it by saying I always say the hated New York Yankees, because, of course, if you're a Blue Jay fan, right, that's part of the territory. You certainly hate them. Now, traditionally, in seasons where the Blue Jays make the playoffs, they actually beat up on the New York Yankees. You look at 92 and 93, the World Series years, of course. The Blue Jays combined to go 19-7 against the Yankees in those seasons. And in 2015 and 2016, when they made the playoffs for the first time since those 92-93 Blue Jays, right? They were 25-13, absolute domination against the Yankees those 2 seasons. So certainly hope for, more of the same in 2023. The Blue Jays and Yankees got together a few weeks back at Yankee Stadium. You might remember that series. Jays played well, took 2 out of 3. That first game was the weekend series. If you remember that Friday night game, that was the Brandon Belt, welcome to the Blue Jays game. That was the Brandon Belt game, right? He had that big double. He had that big 2-run home run as well. Blue Jays won that game 6-1. That was behind, was that Yusei? That was Yusei Kikuchi pitched the gem in that one as well. The second game was the Saturday game. That was Alek Manoah versus Garrett Cole. Had to be the best performance of the season we've seen from Manoah. He pitched very well. So did Cole, though, right? Neither starting pitcher allowed any runs. All the runs would come late in the game off of the relievers. That was the 3-2 final. You might remember that was the game Anthony Volpe hit the 2-run home run for the Yankees in the bottom of the eighth to give them the 2-0 lead. And then Danny Jansen, Sunday's hero, Danny Jansen, the Mother's Day hero, with the pinch hit 2-run home run to tie it. But then as we went to the bottom of the ninth, Jordan Romano faced 4 batters, didn't get any of them out right. And DJ LeMahieu ended up with that game-winning hit. The Red Sox win that game. Now, the Blue Jays took the series on that Sunday behind a gem from Kevin Gausman. They won that game 5-1. You remember Gausman in that game, 7 innings pitched, no runs. What was it? 3 hits, 11 strikeouts. Remember, that was an absolute gem by Kevin Gausman. That was the game where Vlad and Varsho went back-to-back. I want to say in the 6th inning to give the Blue Jays the lead that they would never relinquish. Worth noting in that entire series, because I'm sure this will come up in this 4-game series. I'm sure this will come up more than once in this 4-game series. But Eric Swanson, right? He's probably going to have a few appearances over the course of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday against the New York Yankees. He was excellent against the Yankees in that first series. How did the offense do? Pretty much everybody went 1 for or 2 for. George Springer, 2 for 14. Bo Bichette, just 2 for 12 in that series against the Yankees. Very surprising because Bo Bichette usually hits the New York Yankees very well. Slim Daddy Vladdy, 4 for 11. 4 was by far the most hits of any J in that 3-game series. He had 2 home runs in that series as well. Now, 15 home runs in his career for Vlad against the New York Yankees. And currently, Vlad, of course, let's shut him out because he's on a streak of 19 games in a row reaching base. Is that good? Hey, let's go. Dalton Varsho, oh boy. Now, he did homer in that series, as we just said, right? He went back-to-back with Vlad in that game 3, so that was great, but just 2 for 12 overall in that series. Matt Chapman, just 2 for 11 overall in that series. Whit Merrifield, just 2 for 7 overall in that Yankee series. I mean, the Yankees pitched pretty well. The Yankees pitched the Jays pretty well. Kevin Kiermaier had just 1 hit in that series. Alejandro Kirk had just 1 hit. Now, he did have 3 walks. Kirk did have 3 walks in that series, so it's pretty typical of what we've seen from him this season, right? Really struggling offensively, but is taking his walks. He is getting on base. We would have to say that for him. Danny Jansen, again, Mother's Day hero. He was 3 for 8 in that series. Had that the pinch hit home run we talked about. Had a double as well. And Brandon Belt went 0 for on the Saturday and Sunday game, but again in that. I don't think he didn't play the. Didn't play the finale, I believe. He only played one of those weekend games. He had that good game on Friday. You know, John Schneider's done that a few times this season, right? Where he's sits the hot hand, rests the hot hand, Kiermaier on something. Okay, anyway. But Belt did have that double and that home run in that series. How did some of the New York Yankees, the prevalent New York Yankees, fare in that series? Aaron Judge, 1 for 12 in that series against the Toronto Blue Jays, 4 home runs. Is that going to work? Holy moly. Great job by the Blue Jays pitching against Aaron Judge. Wow. He's taken some steps backwards this season, but it's Aaron Judge, right? It's Aaron Judge. I mean, 1 for 12, that's a major accomplishment. Speaking of 12 at-bats, Anthony Rizzo had 12 at-bats in that series, just 2 hits for Rizzo. Now, he did homer off Adam Simber. We know that's not a threat in this series. Simber's not with the Blue Jays right now. And Anthony Volpe, if you recall, if you take your mind's eye back to that Blue Jays-Yankees series, that was right around the time when the Yankees had actually moved Volpe into their leadoff spot, and he was doing very well. He was red hot. Well, Blue Jays pitchers cooled him off. He was just 2 for 12 in that series. Had that home run we talked about earlier against Yimi Garcia in the bottom of the 8th inning of the only game that the Yankees won in that series, sure. But and then Jansen with the home run, right? And that's the game 2 of that series. So he did have that moment, yes, but only 1 for 11 outside of that moment. Blue Jays pitchers did very well against the youngster. It's going to need to continue this week. To state the obvious, going to need to continue this week. Now, of course, this Blue Jay Yankees series, 4-game series, home series, right in the middle of a 10-game homestand. How have the Toronto Blue Jay individual players done so far at home at the Rogers Center? Let's deep dive that. But first, wanted to mention that for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. Well, it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guarantee Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check, and you know that part will fit or your money back. Because like in sports, confidence is the name of the game. And when you shop at eBay Motors with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit available for U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Now, we know the overall record for the Blue Jays at home so far, 12-3. How about a yes, please? I mean, is that good? Holy cow. Yes, absolutely. Yes, please. How about the individual players? Who's hot? Who needs to pick it up at the Rogers Center? Well, let's go through the lineup, starting from the top of the lineup, and we'll work our way through. So, top of the lineup, of course, that's George Springer. Now, overall in the season, George Springer just 34 for 151. That's a 225 batting average. Yikes. But worth mentioning, George Springer, 16 for 55 at Rogers Center. That's a 291 batting average. Okay, that's very legit. So whatever George Springer, that home cooking, whatever he's been doing at home has been working. Keep that up, George. How about Bo Bichette? Well, no surprise, he's hitting over 300 at home, right? Bo's hitting anywhere he plays pretty much these days. Has only struck out 8 times at home as well. So he is putting the ball in play. Bo, we know that defensively he's had miscues along the way. We know that. But from a hitting standpoint, as good as it gets, right? Third year in a row, he's very likely going to lead the American League in hits. Like, just offensively, we know Bo is special. Speaking of special offensively, at least potentially, right? And I say potentially because what have we seen from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. so far this season? Hasn't been doing it at home. He's not been doing it at the Rogers Center. We would have to acknowledge that, right? We only ever want to have open, honest conversations about the Toronto Blue Jay baseball. Vlad has been, can I say, downright bad at home? He's from Vlad's standards, he's been downright bad at the Rogers Center at home so far this season. 14 for 57. That's a 246 batting average. That describes Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Not even close. That's upwards of 70 points below where he should be. I mean, wow. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at the Rogers Center this season has as many home runs as you or I have at the Rogers Center this season, which of course is to say, bupkis, not one. Now, he hits the Yankees really well, right? I mean, please tell me he's going to get at least one, hopefully a couple in this series. Remember, he got a couple in the series back at Yankee Stadium against the Yankees a couple of weeks ago, but man, he needs to get going. Even with his 2 home runs, 2 RBIs that he had in yesterday's game, still on the season, just 7 RBIs at Rogers Center. 246 average, no home runs, 7 RBIs. None of that describes Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Got to pick it up, Vladdy. Let's go. How about Dalton Varsho? Well, no. Speaking of a guy that needs to pick it up at home, holy moly, he has not thrilled the home crowd just yet. Been solid defensively. We know that's pretty much going to be his calling card. He's always going to be that good defensively. And I say pretty much because I still have faith that his offense can be really, really good. I don't know if you saw on Blair Barker the other day, his dad was on talking about, yeah, he's just been terrible. He's trying to make some adjustments because he's just been terrible. Well, in particular at home, 7 for 51. That's a 137 batting average at Rogers Center. And Varsho on this last road trip seemed to pick it up, and in particular started driving in runs. Important, I would say. Yes, he's either going to hit 4th or 5th in this Blue Jay lineup. You're hitting middle of the lineup. That's an RBI spot. You're hitting middle of this Blue Jay lineup. That's with Springer, Bo, and Vlad sitting the table for you. There's going to be RBI opportunities. He's got 16 on the season, just 2 at Rogers Center. Just 2 at Rogers Center. I mean, surely, I know, don't call me Shirley, right? But I mean, surely there's going to be an opportunity for Varsho to get at least another 2 RBIs, if not 3, on a big home run, hopefully early on in this Yankee series, right? I'll be watching for that closely. Matt Chapman. What sort of conversation do we want to have about Matt Chapman? How good was his April? His April was a video game. His April was a dream come true. It was incredible. How about May? Overall, let's start with Matt Chapman at Rogers Center because that's the topic here. So overall, Matt Chapman, 15 for 49. That's a 306 batting average at Rogers Center. Are we going to take that? We're going to take that. Just 1 for 12 in this Atlanta series. And is this guy struggling in the month of May? Since he was named the player of the month for April, Matt Chapman is hitting 174. And I'm back to that line I just used with Vlad. He has as many home runs in May as you or I have. 0, right? Absolutely no. And I don't think either one of us have any home runs on the big league level in May. Would you believe neither does Matt Chapman? I'm pretty sure as well, Matt. We could look this up, and I'm pretty sure Matt Chapman in May also has 1 RBI. How crazy is that? How absolutely insane is that? Wow. Brandon Belt. Now, here's some good news. Brandon Belt, when you look at his numbers on the surface, you're going to be very underwhelmed. You're going to wonder what the Blue Jays need to do to bring in Joey Votto at the trade deadline, right? If you're just looking at it at the surface. But Belt at Rogers Center really started to heat up. Overall, 10 for 32. That's a 313 batting average. You talk about a yes, please? That's a yes, please. And Belt, we were just talking about how Chapman has really struggled in May. So Chapman's arrow pointed down. Belt's arrow's pointed up in May. He's been very good in May. He's hitting over 400 in May. His on-base percentage is over 500 in May. Is that good? Holy moly, Brandon Belt, please absolutely keep that going. And speaking of please keep that going, how about Whit Merrifield? 13 for 42. That's a 310 batting average at the Rogers Center. Yes, please. 8 for 8 in stolen bases at Rogers Center. Everydayers will remember that. We called out, we on Locked On Blue Jays, we picked Whit Merrifield as the X factor for the Toronto Blue Jays in 2023. It's just a laundry list. Honestly, it's upwards of 20 guys deep. The Chris Coglins, the Brandon Drurys, the Eric Sogards. I mean, really, we'd have to deep dive and go Alan Hansen. Oh my gosh, there's a million. The Blue Jays Shapiro and Akin era. They've tried, honestly, it's honestly upwards of like 20. It's almost like as many as 24 players where they've tried to have them come in and be their poor man's version of Whit Merrifield. Well, last season at the trade deadline, they get the actual Whit Merrifield, and this is precisely what they envisioned, precisely what they had in mind. A professional hitter. Whit Merrifield gives you good at-bats. He's a professional hitter. He's never going to embarrass himself defensively, and you can put him anywhere you want defensively. He's got that level of flexibility, but that base running that this guy brings to the table. When the Blue Jays brought in Varsho, I thought the 7-8-9 was going to be Varsho, Whit, and Kiermaier, and maybe we may get there at some point. But imagine that base running at the bottom of the lineup with Varsho, Merrifield, and Kiermaier, as is, even with Varsho not there, with Whit and Kiermaier. It's the most dynamic, not just flexible, it's the most dynamic base running at the bottom of a lineup of any offense in Toronto Blue Jay history. Well, Craig, you don't mean any, you don't mean, yes, literally, the most dynamic base running of any offense in Toronto Blue Jay franchise history. And Whit Merrifield is a huge part of that. Alejandro Kirk, just 20 for 89 overall, just 10 for 33 at Rogers Center with 7 walks. I mean, so Kirk has struggled with the bat, yes, but you open honest conversation, right? We do have to acknowledge he is taking his walks, right? He is getting on base. Hopefully it's only going to be a matter of time before Alejandro Kirk's bat comes alive. Danny Jansen did get the game-winning hit yesterday, but we know Danny Jansen's been struggling. 9 for 36 so far at Rogers Center, but let's just glass half full it with Danny Jansen, right? Maybe that big hit yesterday is something that's going to really propel him. And you know he feels good about hitting against the Yankees. He had that big pinch hit home run against the Yankees a couple weeks back. So let's watch him this week against the hated New York Yankees. Kevin Kiermaier, 10 for 36 at Rogers Center. That's a 278 batting average. This guy's career batting average coming into the season was under 250. Are we loving what we're seeing from Kevin Kiermaier? Everydayers will remember we had this conversation at the beginning of the season that of all the changes that Rob Manfred, hate him, has brought into baseball, a handful of things have remained the same, have remained constant. And one of those things, we just saw it last season with the Houston Astros hitting Maldonado in the 9 spot. One of those things that still remains true, you can be a championship contender, a legitimate World Series contender, and have a struggling hitter, a not good hitter in that 9 spot if that hitter is elite defensively. That describes Kevin Kiermaier. And on top of that, he's giving base running. On top of that, he's giving effort. He's giving hustle. He's bringing the defense that we thought he would bring to the table. And Kevin Kiermaier in 2023 so far is bringing offense, in particular at home. What's not to love? What is not to love? He's not quite as good looking as I am. How can I blame him for that? I can't come down on him for that. Anywho, how about the pitchers? Alek Manoah, Blue Jays 2-1 in Manoah's 3 starts at home. I mean, that's good, but his ERA, he himself is 0-1 at Rogers Center. His ERA is just under 8 at Rogers Center. We're going to look more at Alek Manoah a little bit later on as we look at tonight's pitching matchup. Opponents hitting .322 versus Alek Manoah at Rogers Center. As if that stat's not enough to blow your mind. How about this one? 13 walks and 15 strikeouts at Rogers Center. Alek freaking Manoah is going to walk for every walk. It's a strikeout. Like, are you kidding me? That is nothing. None of those numbers we just rhymed off there describes Alek Manoah, right? Like, we know he's going to get it turned around. We certainly hope he's going to get it turned around anyway. Kevin Gausman doesn't need to get anything turned around. Keep going the way he's been going. He's only had 2 home starts. The Blue Jays have won both of those home starts. He hasn't gotten a decision in either one, but his ERA is under 2. Opponents hitting .204 at Rogers Center versus Kevin Gausman. Kevin Gausman's been awesome this season. You take out that first inning in Houston, that second inning against Boston, and he has been unbelievable. How about at Rogers Center this season? How about 24 strikeouts for Kevin Gausman and 1 walk? Are you absolutely kidding me? I'll say that again. 24 strikeouts, 1 walk at the Rogers Center. Kevin Gausman, keep going. Jose Barrios. None of us liked the season. None of us liked Jose Barrios' 2022, but I said many times that if you're like me and your wins and losses are your paramount number one thing no matter what, and then afterwards you deep dive the numbers and you do the things we like to do with baseball, right? We like to deep dive the numbers, the analytics, all the stats, all that stuff, right? But first and foremost always has to be the wins and the losses. Blue Jays were 14-2 last season at Rogers Center when Jose Barrios pitched. I wasn't any happier with his individual performance than you were, but for whatever reason, the Jays won games when he pitched. Well, this season, Blue Jays have won all 3 of Jose Barrios' starts at Rogers Center. I think if I'm remembering correctly, now he's had 26 starts for the Blue Jays at Rogers Center, and they've won 21 of those starts. Holy moly! Holy moly! Opponents hitting just .212 versus Jose Barrios at Rogers Center. Is that an improvement from last season? How about? Last season, we saw a lot of missed spots, a lot of wildness from Jose Barrios. Well, at the Rogers Center so far this season, 18 strikeouts, just 4 walks. Jose Barrios, keep that going. Jose Barrios, keep that going. How about Chris Bassitt, the Hound? Blue Jays just 2-2 in his 4 starts at Rogers Center. Now, worth noting, that the 2 games they lost were not on Bassitt at all. That was that 3-1 game they lost to the Tigers. He threw a gem in that game, and that was that a couple Sundays ago. Bassitt pitched that game where the Blue Jays were up 8-4 late, ended up blowing it to Seattle 10-8. If you remember that one, that was a tough game a few Sundays back. But as you see, Bassitt, even in the 2 games the Jays have lost, they haven't lost because of him. He himself at Rogers Center has a 2-1 record with an ERA of 2.73. The Hound on the mound at the Rogers Center. Yes, please. Opponents are hitting 178 versus Bassitt at Rogers Center, and Bassitt's whip, his walks and hits per innings pitched, so anything below 1 is excellent. 0.873. Chris Bassitt, the Hound on the mound, is off to a great start in front of the home crowd. Yusei Kikuchi. Now, Blue Jays have won all 3 of Kikuchi's starts at home so far this season. Gotta love that. He was terrible yesterday. We saw that. He got absolutely rocked. Now, he had allowed, going into yesterday's start against Atlanta, Kikuchi had 2 home starts. He had allowed in total in those 2 home starts 1 run. It was a solo home run. He had allowed 1 run in his 2 starts. He was rocked by Hotlanta yesterday to the tune of 3 home runs and 5 runs overall. Now, overall, Yusei Kikuchi under 2 walks per game. Every day, as we remember, we've talked at length about Yusei Kikuchi, especially early on in the season. How Jays need him to turn it around from 2022. That was completely unacceptable, what we saw last season. How much better did they need him to be? Because ultimately, they were hoping he would just snuggle in as that 5 starter, right? So how good do you need that 5 starter to be a really good contender? Yusei Kikuchi has been every bit the role of that 5 starter, and maybe even in then some. He's been really good for the Toronto Blue Jays so far this season. And take out that start yesterday at Atlanta, he's been really good in front of the home crowd. And now to close out Monday's edition of the Locked On Blue Jay podcast, let's deep dive tonight's pitching matchup. 7:07 p.m. Eastern is the first pitch. Of course, like any Blue Jay game, you can catch that on Sirius XM. Johnny Brito, the rookie, versus Alek Manoah. Johnny Brito in the Yankee rotation pretty much because of the injury to Luis Severino. We know the New York Yankees dealing with a few major injuries to their starting rotation, Severino and Carlos Rodon, of course, chief among them. Now, Johnny Brito, 2-3 record, ERA just under 6. It hasn't gone well for the rookie. And perfect start. And I know, be careful what you say, be careful what you wish for, right? But I think this is the perfect starter for the Blue Jays to face in the first of a 4-game series. In any series, you really, as the opposition, you want to get into the other team's bullpen as quickly as possible. Well, just by default, Blue Jays will be into the Yankee bullpen early in this 4-game series because Johnny Brito's not a guy that's going to give the Yankees a lot of length. He's had 8 starts this season. 3 of them, he's gone 5 innings. That's the most he's gone. He's usually going below 5 innings, never more than 5, at least so far, right? Bottom of the lineups have done well against Johnny Brito, which is interesting. We know the bottom of the Blue Jay lineup is hot right now. Now, the top of the lineup, though, that's where we're really, right from the jump on this Yankee series, we're really going to be watching this bottom of the first inning really, really closely. Because, yes, the bottom of the lineup has done damage against Brito, but the top of the lineup in first innings is really where he's gotten himself in a lot of trouble. Really explains a lot, too, about how he gets the pitch counts up and doesn't last longer than 5 innings. He's really been rocked early on in the games. Let's look for this Toronto Blue Jay offense to continue momentum from Sunday's walk-off victory from this weekend's sweep against the Atlanta Braves. Johnny Brito's ERA in the first inning, 10.57. Okay, glass half full, right? Let's get excited about that. And also worth mentioning, as a glass half full, as a feather in the Blue Jays cap tonight, at least potentially, is the fact that Brito has been hit by righties. Well, talk about the top of that Blue Jay lineup. What are we talking about there? We're talking about George Springer, Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and hopefully this righty can be the cure for what's been ailing Matt Chapman. Throws hard. He's got a good four-seamer. He's got a really hard sinker. His changeup is by far his most effective pitch. When there's two strikes, you better be looking for the changeup. It's been his strikeout pitch all season long. When his sinker is on, Johnny Brito is a ground ball machine. So we'll know if Brito has his stuff tonight, if he's inducing a lot of ground balls early, and if he's really late in counts, really being effective with that changeup. We'll know, okay, yeah, tip of the hat to Johnny Brito today. Now, over his last 3 starts, he has allowed 5 home runs. So balls are flying out of stadiums against Johnny Brito. Again, hopefully a lot of this can continue tonight for your Toronto Blue Jays. Alek Manoah on the mound. Wow, Alek Manoah, 1-3 on the season, 4.83 ERA overall, 7.71 ERA so far at Rogers Center. Just has not been the Alek Manoah that we've already grown to know and love. Nothing has been as sharp as it's been in the past. None of his pitches have been as sharp as they've been in the past. In particular, the slider. Opponents hit like 190 against the slider last season. They're hitting well over 300 against it this season. It's just, I don't get it. The stats tell you that the slider's been problematic for Alek Manoah, but the eye test, I mean, my goodness, you could very literally watch a highlight and you would know instantly, was that a 2021 or a 2022 Alek Manoah slider? The one we came to know and love, the one that I often joke that shouldn't even be allowed against righties. I talk about in general, I think opponents say, I'm pretty sure it was 190 against this slider last season. Well, righties were more like 150. He just dominated righties with this slider. Has not been on display yet in 2023. Now, worth noting, his best start of the season had to be that start a couple weeks back against this Yankee team. And we've seen Manoah be good against this Yankee team before, right? He gets dialed up for these matchups. So a lot of cause for optimism, I would say, tonight, right? When you're talking about a pitcher that's 1-3, ERA just under 5, ERA at home just under 8, you're not going to see a lot of cause for optimism. But when it's Manoah against the Yankees, I think there is cause for optimism tonight for the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, Aaron Judge is the only Yankee in this lineup who's ever hit a home run off of Alek Manoah, but it's his only hit against Alek Manoah in 19 at-bats. Aaron Judge, 1 for 19 against Alek Manoah. 7 strikeouts in there, by the way. Holy, is that domination? Wow, wow, wow. Speaking of dominations, who cares who the catcher is for the Yankees tonight? Alek Manoah doesn't. He's dominated them in the past. These Yankee catchers, whether it's Higgy tonight or Trevino, they are 0 for 11 combined against Alek Manoah. Again, we're seeing a lot of glass half full, a lot of cause for optimism tonight. I'm thinking for Alek Manoah and the Toronto Blue Jays. We talk about that start that he had against the Yankees a few weeks back, and I'm saying it had to be his best start of the season. Went 7 innings, gave up a walk, gave up a single, gave up a double. That's it. Did not give up a run. Struck out 5. I mean, a really good start. He was toe-to-toe. Garrett Cole was incredible that game. You remember that? They were toe-to-toe with each other. Alek Manoah was not blinking, and he was struggling going into that start. But again, something about Alek Manoah and the New York Yankees, he picks it up. His last home start, you have to go back to that Seattle series. Now, of his home starts this season, that was probably his best start. So his best start of the season was very likely against this Yankee team. He's coming off likely his best home start of the season. That Seattle start, you might remember, it was 5 innings pitched. Just 2 runs allowed. I mean, I'll take that. 4 walks. They did have a season-high 7 strikeouts, right? But 4 walks, 7 strikeouts. You can see why only lasted 5 innings. That's going to get your pitch count up. 4 walks for Alek Manoah. I mean, that's not at all what we've come to know, love, and dare I say expect from Alek Manoah. Is there possible there's a Mother's Day bump coming for Alek Manoah here in this start? You know, he was absolutely thrilled to have his mom throw out the first pitch yesterday. He's really proud of their relationship and really proud of her and the whole Mother's Day thing and the Blue Jays with the walk-off. I mean, and we know Alek Manoah is an emotional pitcher, right? So I think he's going to have a lot of emotions going on this Monday. In the past, we've seen him be able to harness it pretty well and have good performances. And again, I'm going to mention Alek Manoah. Greg, I've not been happy with what I've seen from Alek Manoah in 2023. I get that, but there is cause for optimism when it comes to Alek Manoah versus the New York Yankees. That'll wrap up Monday's episode of the Locked On Blue Jay podcast. Remember, Locked On Blue Jays, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, want to remind you that you can catch the Blue Jay games on SiriusXM. Tune in tomorrow. Epic show coming up on Tuesday, joined in a crossover episode by the two people that run the Locked On Yankees. So we're going to get a lot of really good insight for this Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. A lot of really good insight about how how the New York Yankees are doing this season, what we can expect and look for in the series. I assume, because it's two Yankee people and one Blue Jay people, I assume we'll hear some pretty epic trash talk in there as well. But I know it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a great conversation. If you're a baseball fan of someone, more than just the Toronto Blue Jays, then keep it locked on the Locked On Podcast Network and check out Locked On MLB. If you're a fantasy baseball fan like myself, then keep it locked on the Locked On Podcast Network and check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. We'll see you tomorrow.